Hello everybody, thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to share my experience on an augmented reality project with you, which we realized last year in Augusta Raurica. Augusta Raurica was the name of an ancient Roman city in present-day Switzerland. Today it's also the name of an archaeological site and an open-air museum in the same place. Augusta Raurica is located in the north of Switzerland, near the Swiss city of Basel. It is close to the Rhine River, which forms the border to Germany and France. Digital revolution is influencing every aspect of life permanently. This includes also archaeological heritage sites such as Augusta Raurica. Traditional text displays, audio guides, and guided tours are oftentimes not entertaining enough for the visitors. Therefore, new interactive and digital content is required to present the cultural heritage and also keep visitors interested. Working on the Augusta Raurica AR Experience project, we broke new ground in the use of hybrid technologies in presenting cultural and historical sites. As a project leader, I guided the whole process from the start and was responsible for the concept, which also includes the historical and archaeological content. So this presentation provides you with the following topics. You can see the location and hear about the history of the ancient Roman city. You gain insight into the project mission and the exhibition site. You can see the project, our work, and its outcome. You hear what we learned from this, and additionally, you gain brand new insights into the new work we just started in the open-air museum area. The Roman Empire encompassed the entire Mediterranean area as well as all of Central Europe as far as England, North Africa, and the Middle East. Its heyday was in the 3rd century CE. Even then, the trade relations existed via sea routes and Silk roads to India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and from there to central China to Xi'an. The Romans delivered glassware to the east. In return, they imported mainly spices, precious stones, and silk from the east. In the 1st century BCE, under the first Roman Emperor Augustus, a whole series of cities were established north of the Alps. Among them was Augusta Raurica, founded in 44 BCE. It was a greenfield foundation with a planned city grid and all the facilities necessary for a Roman city. Reasons for the choice of the site were its favorable geographical location on a plateau and close to watercourses. Additionally, its location was at an important crossroad with connections to the north of the empire. As in the entire Roman Empire, the time of greatest prosperity in Augusta Raurica was around the middle of the 3rd century. The number of inhabitants at that time was around 12,000 to 15,000. The city center also served as a political center. This included public buildings, theaters, temples, and many richly furnished private houses. In the lower town in the Rhine River were the simpler houses together with the commercial buildings, metal foundries, glass-blowing factories, and meat processing industries. This is where goods were made ready for long-distance trade. They were shipped in the Rhine to the north and arriving from there for onward transport. Augusta Raurica served as a regional hub. Around 300 CE, the population has shrunk considerably, and much of the town was abandoned. By the Rhine, a new fort was built with an important base for the military on the Rhine frontier. The most important transport routes were still functioning at this point. Located alongside these were some flourishing commercial buildings and taverns. I have marked them with a yellow circle. I will go into detail about them later. As you can see, they sit at the crossroad of a through route leading east-west and a road leading northwards toward the bridge over the Rhine. This was certainly a prime business location. Today, the ancient city is located under a densely populated area. Some of the ancient monuments are still visible and are scattered in between modern housing estates and industrial areas. To date, more than 20 ruins have been excavated in the site and opened to the public. This includes temple, baths, public and private houses, and above all, the best preserved scenic theatre north of the Alps. These are all freely accessible to visitors today. All the monuments are maintained and interpreted for the public by the institution Augusta Raurica. The institution is responsible for the whole area of the ancient city and is in charge of excavations throughout the site. It takes now care over 2 million archaeological objects and finds. A new collection center has been built for this purpose, where depots, conservation workshops, and offices are located. In contrast, the actual museum is really small. Unfortunately, and mainly due to political reasons, the museum building cannot be enlarged. But the project I want to talk to you about now is carried out in the so-called commercial houses that I mentioned earlier. These are ruins of one of the best preserved Roman private houses north of the Alps, with an amazing degree of preservation, almost like a small Pompeii. The area was excavated in the 1980s and the ruins conserved with a protective building. The finds and structures are spectacular due to a geographical setting. The Romans had built a multi-stored property on a sloping side. When the building fell victim to a fire around 300 CE, the upper floors collapsed into the lowest rooms at the foot of the slope. This filled them with rubble so that the remains such as the walls were preserved. Even the paintings on the wall partially survived. Also, all those belonging of the last inhabitants that did not burn were preserved in remarkable condition. This includes tableware, jewelry, and statues of the gods, simply all the household goods that were made of non-organic materials such as clay, iron, precious metals, or stone. Here you can see the entire content of a clay vessel, of the clay vessels from a former Cobbett. Despite of such a spectacular sight, the ruins were not often visited because today they are located next to a busy road. Additionally, difficult climatic conditions in the protective building as well as too much sunlight was damaging the walls. Conservation measures were becoming more and more urgent, and that's why the building needed renovation. The funding of a new exhibition in the archaeologically significant area of ruins at Augusta Raurica was made possible thanks to a substantial financial contribution from the Swiss Federal Office of Culture. The conditions were defined as in a contract. I will summarize them briefly. The project aimed to make the site accessible to different visitors groups by using the latest research findings, creating new physical access points, and developing innovative, immersive forms of interpretation. The project had to be completed and the site had to be accessible in March 22. Furthermore, it had to be launched as a model project of national-wide significance. Really a high ambition. For the realization of the digital aspects of the project, we found a wonderful partner in Tamschick Media and Space from Berlin. They suggested that we work with as little technology as possible in the protective building and instead to use the visitors' cell phones to access the interpretive content. For application, a specialized company was hired, that's NeoAnalog. They turned out to be the ideal partner and invested a lot of extra work in this project. We started the work at the end of 2019, which meant that it fell right within the period of pandemic. The scientific basis and content were prepared by me and my staff, and the implementation was a joint effort with the partners. Everything online, of course. At the same time, we redeveloped the protective building. We installed new platforms to get a better view of the ruins with the app. We also implemented a stair lift, which made it easily accessible for wheelchair users. The development of the digital guide was, of course, of course, time-consuming, as it was important to us that our app would require a real visit to the site. It should only be work in the commercial buildings and not on the web. After numerous attempts and flops, we settled an app with 3 features. The possibility to see the building as a whole, a digital exhibition of selected finds from the excavation, which shows the range of outstanding finds from everyday object to metal statues, an immersion audio play with appropriate visualizations in 3D, which completes the visit with spatial acoustics of the last hour of the inhabitants in the building before the catastrophic fire. As archaeologists, it was important to us that all the objects were not only archaeologically accurate, but also shown in the right place within the correct context. So the development of the reconstruction drawings turned out to be very complex. All the detail had to be right. Not only the finds had to be depicted correctly, but also floors, furniture, or cabinets had to be placed in the right place. Typologically correct, of course. That was not an easy job for the graphic artists to satisfy us as archaeologists. For the 3D illustration, we chose a sketchy black and white charcoal drawing style. The app the displays it a little bit lighter than here in the photos. On the app, the illustration appears directly over the ruins. The reconstructions should not be flawless, as it should not devaluate the ruinous and fragmentary remains. With the fleeting charcoal drawings, we indicate the provisional nature of the reconstruction, which leaves room for other interpretations, as we will never know exactly what the room looked like in antiquity. The drawings also create a special atmosphere. The vagueness of the drawings allows the viewers to involve their own imagination. The drawings are based on graphic novels. The style is particularly well received by a large segment of audience. Its artistic style differs from the usual digitally created reconstruction drawings. The room reconstructions are created in 3D. As the viewer moves around, the reconstruction moves with them, so that the images on the screen continue to fit the room. Objects are reconstructed at their exact find spot. Here you can see the so-called warehouse. The room was clearly refurbished at the time of the fire around 300 CE. On the device screen, the virtual reconstructions of the rooms are imposed on the real ruins. They adapt exactly to the user's movement. As mentioned before, the drawings are complemented by an audio. This narrates the events of the room in the last hours before the devastating fire. The story is, of course, fictional. The story takes the perspective of the women working there. It was important for us to show that in Roman times, women occupied an important place in economic life, even if they had fewer political rights. The narrator is played by the statue of a god. The statue was found during the excavation in a hiding place under the charred wooden floor. With headphones, a spatial and acoustic experience is possible in the exhibition. I cannot provide it here. However, here is a sample of the audio play that takes place in the living room with the 2 main protagonists.
Oh, what a lovely smell of spices. Honey, cloves, saffron, and bay leaves. Visurix and her maid Marilina must have conjured this up.
Marilina, Caldinius has arrived. I will set off for my daughter's house in Genava as soon as possible. Once the business has been concluded, all this belongs to you. You've made the necessary arrangements on your part, haven't you?
Yes, I managed to convince Renicus. After all, the inn is situated on the best street and is a sure source of income. He will give me the loan.
The innkeeper Visurix is a clever woman and managed to work her way up to ownership of the tavern. It appears is that Marolina is set to take over the business now.
Oh, don't let them bamboozle you, Marolina.
I'll be careful. After all, I had you to show me the ropes.
Look, I've hidden the most important documents in the strongbox under those floorboards. I also put the household gods there. They should remain there. After all, they've been protecting this house for a long time.
There. Do you see the chest in that corner? That's where Visurigs hid me under the floorboards that night. Me and the other statues of the gods.
Naturally, I'll take my jewelry. That way, I'm not dependent on the goodwill of my son-in-law. I'll leave the document confirming your freedom from slavery in the chest. Make sure to keep it safe.
The app works with anchors that divide the space into virtual cubes. The image shows these virtual wireframes as they were implemented in the protective building. The corners of these cubes serve as so-called anchors. These spatial anchors allow a direct overlay over the runes with their virtual counterparts. Once scanned, the app then knows its position and orientation and intuitively follows the user's path and overlays the illustration on the ruins with pinpoint accuracy. For experts, the app uses the AR framework, Microsoft Azure Spatial Anchors, and the AR Foundations. It's built with Unity for iOS and Android. Here we are back in the entrance of the building. An artistic installation greets the visitor with the question, what will we leave behind? The space is meant to stimulate a discussion about transience and legacy. As you can see, we are currently working in 4 languages. German, French, and Italian are mandatory national languages in Switzerland. The installation shows half-buried present-day objects. They are the modern counterparts of ancient objects found there. The installation has an additional function, as the modern objects act as triggers. Once selected on the touchscreen of the device, they digitally show their antique counterparts and provide insights into their archaeological context. At the same time, archaeologically interested people can get more information about this excavation. Outside the protective building on the screen, the entire area of the ruins is visible from a bird's eye perspective, with the correct geographic orientation. Furthermore, the ruins can be shown in 3D reconstruction. That allows the viewers to see what the site looked like in its original state. I am happy to tell you that we met the goals in time. The exhibition opened in May 22 despite the pandemic. Overall, the length of the stay of the visitors had increased remarkably, and we have a new external exhibition venue, despite of not having a museum, which brings in new visitors and much more school classes too. Nevertheless, the reality sets in after the euphoria. And as you can imagine, not everything worked out as expected. In order to make improvements, we are still gathering feedbacks from our visitors, purely analog, as you can see here. The bottom line is that many of the problems that arise during the visits are due to incorrect use by our visitors. So we continue to have to adjust our instructions. People are impatient and tend to move their devices too fast, which can result in the app crashing. Also, the app does not work on older smartphone models, iPhone 6 and behind. Anyway, I'm happy to share some lessons with you. Look for solutions through the technology and not in the technology, which is first define the digital system and then create the content for it. That saves a lot of time and money. Digital curiosity and competence is no longer a matter of age. Some elderly users manage it well, younger ones sometimes not. Don't assume that all visitors have the same level of digital literacy. Make sure to provide clear instructions and support for those who may need it. Be prepared for the unexpected. Technical issues may arise, or visitors may use the digital tool in ways you didn't anticipate. Stay flexible and be willing to make adjustments as needed. And consider the long-term maintenance and sustainability of the digital project. Will it require regular updates or technical support? How will it be integrated into museums' existing systems? We have received, in the meantime, another financial grant from the Swiss Federal Office of Culture for a follow-up project. The new task is to make the large, freely accessible archaeological area attractive to the public in a multi-layered and inclusive way. The project is about valorization of the central area of the ancient city, namely the area around the Roman theatre and the Forum. These were the political center of the ancient city. We started the project as a design thinking process, investigating the following issues. Which path do our visitors use? How long do they stay? How long would we like guests to stay? What do we have to offer them to make them stay longer? To understand what visitors want, where they come from and how they orient themselves, we conducted in-depth research together with the Academy of the Arts in Bern in Switzerland. We analyzed the patterns of arrivals by means of public and private transport, as well as footpaths and bicycle routes. We also explored the visitor needs through surveys and evaluated every path to and from the monuments, as well as each fork in the road. We discussed the specific characteristics in ways to increase the attractiveness of places and its paths. From this research, we have developed a concept and strategy. We have divided the entire area of the ancient city into 5 core zones, each with thematic focus dedicated to a specific aspect of everyday Roman life in the city, such as politics, society, daily life, climate, or rise and fall of an empire. The choice of the umbrella term depends, of course, on the most emblematic monument preserved in the zone. We just started the project with a master plan, and we have really, as said before, chosen a multi-layered and inclusive approach, utilizing hands-on element and personalized smartphone app. We are planning a new system of analog signposts and information boards that are easily recognizable in the landscape. The new system shall be attractive, accessible, understandable, and inclusive, and tailored to different visitor groups. We will need exciting hands-on elements that encourage exploration, allowing for a sensory and playful approach to the specific content and information. To make the on-site tour more attractive, we need more than signposts and information boards. And of course, the new app will enable to put together their own tour in real time, allowing for a more personalized experience that can be tailored to their own cases. But this app should be more than just a guide. Digitality provides us with endless possibilities to explore various aspects of cultural heritage in greater depth. Based on our experience, we have decided to focus on developing following features. Firstly, we want to create personal stories that allow people to build an emotional connection with the cultural heritage. Secondly, by sharing hidden stories that are not visible to naked eye, and we can provide background information on things such as the story behind some strange inscription of Roman gravestones, or the efforts of restorers to preserve cultural heritage in time of climate change. Third, we want to showcase archaeological objects that have to have discovered but currently stored away in depots because not having a museum to show them. Overall, the goal is to use technology to tie the monuments together into an eternity of meaning. We will enable visitors to discover points of interest by various means and from different perspectives. In providing a holistic experience with sensory and emotional dimensions, we aim to spark the visitors' imagination and inspire them to a new understanding of the past, as well as to reflection on the present day. The combination of analog and digital mediation in the landscape will give our visitors a memorable experience and a good day out. There is still a lot of work to do. The exhibition in this public space of the Antique Roman Theatre will open in spring 25, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. So I was very happy that I could share my experience with you, and I thank you for your patience.